We love those big panels. It's great. Thanks so much for being here. A quick round of icebreaker to get to know our panelists a little bit better. So Donna, you're next to me, and we met first time at COP29 actually in Baku. Is this your first time attending ITB, and what's your impression so far?
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Professor. This is my first time in about 20 years.
Oh.
So I'm looking at it from a different lens right now. Obviously, this is a different temperature to what I'm used to in the Caribbean. But this room alone reminds me of the Caribbean.
Good.
But it also reminds me of the power of coming together. So that warmth, you get this big hug, so you definitely feel the warmth in here, even though you don't feel it on the outside.
That's right.
So it's wonderful to be here, and I'm certainly going to come back.
Thank you so much, Donna. It's the tourism sector for you. Virginia, I think ITB doesn't have any secrets to you, correct? I'm pretty sure. How many times have you been coming to ITB?
Too many times.
Never too
More
many.
than we can count. It has actually been warm, not just with people, but also in temperature. Some people were counting. So we have a sun.
Yes.
Which is the big difference over the past decade, I think.
That's true. For those of you who've been attending, I think it's the first time that we really have some nice and warm weather out there. Thanks so much for joining. Glenn, you also were very busy yesterday on panels. We did the accessibility panel, which was really, really good.
Yes.
What's your impression so far?
It's really good that it's on the conversation, and it's become a day on the ITP agenda. Accessibility is key. It's a significant, an important inclusion opportunity that we need to really take hold of, but it's also a significant economic opportunity for the industry that is being left on the table. And so it's really good to see that conversation is really taking hold. We've got a lot of work to do in this sector on this topic, but it's good. It's coming.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Misa, not only are you attending, but you also have a stand at the fair.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yes, we do. It's very far away from here. You just placed us on the other side.
You get your steps in.
But there's a bus. So come see us. It's stand 103 in hall 2.1. It's not easy, but find us as a big U flag. And you should come see us because we have just launched a new application. Well, we opened the applications for the 2026 Capital Smart Tourism and European Green Pioneer. So please apply. Come see us, and we'll tell you everything we do.
Thanks, Misa. Lossie John, is this your first ITB? Are you a regular? Sort of, what are your thoughts?
Very much my first time here. Berlin's a great city, isn't it? Third visit to Berlin, but first time at ITB. I think anyone who hasn't been to ITB, make sure you wear a pair of very comfortable shoes. Because there's a lot of walking entailed in getting around the venue, but it's a fantastic place, a lot of energy, a lot of good vibes, and great to be here.
Well, fantastic. Thanks, everyone, for sharing. And let's now dive into the panel discussion. Misa, let's start with sort of the big picture. Can you explain a little bit more the role of the European Commission on tourism, and especially your actions moving forward, and how this new positioning will advance sustainable tourism?
Thanks. Before I dive into the details, this is the first time, this next 5 years, from now to the next 5 years, the first time in the history of the EU, to which I think many of us belong, that we have a commissioner for tourism. So tourism is a priority now. And if you think about it, it's a bit weird that it was never before. It was always, there was a team there and a directorate there, but never quite like a big priority. And I think it's very telling that this comes at a time where challenges are pretty pressing on us, and it's not, all challenges, like mass tourism and the strain it puts on communities, but also new challenges, there's wars just around the corner from us, aggressions, there's a lot of hate going around and fragmentation, divisions, rising costs of housing and energy, inflation. It's a bit depressing just enumerating them, and the European Commission, the new one, set for itself the task of becoming more competitive. And in this, they decided that tourism is a priority. I think this is a very good message for this ITB, for the next ITBs, for all the conversations that we should have about tourism. So going forward, not just lip service, going forward, what we want to do is to launch a new strategy for sustainable tourism, which we will publish next year. It's coming next year, I think early next year, in spring hopefully, but which we are preparing now. And this kind of panels and this kind of trade fairs and meeting and talking really helps the European Commission understanding what should go into this strategy. We don't know, we have some ideas, we have priorities we know should go in, and we can deep dive in them maybe later, but what's going to happen this year is we're going to consult everyone that wants to talk to us so that you can tell us what you think we should put in a European strategy for tourism 2050.
Fantastic, thank you for that. Joining us also from Brussels, building on Misa's insights on EU strategies, could you discuss a bit more the role of DMOs in aligning regional tourism practices with these broader strategies?
Yeah, well, DMOs have a vital role, don't they, to play in delivering these EU strategies. So it's really, really important that they, as they are in the front line, ultimately, that they play this role in formulating policies. So I hope when you come to your consultation, you will consult with organisations like Nextdoor. I'm sure you will do. We'd be delighted to contribute. It's really important that the voice of the regions who are at the sharp end, in the front line of delivering these EU strategies and national policies as well. So they certainly have something to say about all of this. At Nextdoor, we just completed our strategy, Pathway Strategies of 2030. This has been a detailed exercise over more than a year now, consulting with our almost 50 regions to make sure that they are able to go forward and deliver on the twin transition, so around digitization, and also obviously climate change, the Green Deal. So we work with them in that regard in a very, very sort of concerted way to ensure that they feel able to deliver on these agendas. Particularly our Tourism of Tomorrow Lab, which is now in its 4th year of operation, is helping our regions to measure and manage data, to leverage these huge data sets, to take advantage of the opportunities of AI, and to make sure that ultimately that they are measuring the data. We want to move those regions towards a sort of more comparable set of indicators that can be benchmarked and compared at European level. So on the one hand, very much aligned with the EU tourism agenda, and I'm sure the next incarnation of that agenda that's coming up, we're looking forward to contributing to that. But in addition to that, I think we're very much sort of at the cutting edge of leading and driving these agendas as well. So we look forward to contributing. Just on climate change, we are signatories as an organisation, subnational entity, to the Glasgow Declaration. Many of our regions are also signatories as well, and we are working obviously sort of in that regard to support them. But I won't go on too long because I'm getting the evil eye from
No, that's okay. Thanks, John. Thanks, Misa. And you set the stage a little bit, and let's shift our focus to a more global focus. So, Donna, you were at COP29, and I was curious about what was the impact of you being a signatory now to the Baku Declaration, and also for your region, which is highly dependent on tourism. Can you walk us through a little bit the post-COP29 and what that means to you?
Oh, absolutely. And what an amazing experience. And I'd like to take just a moment to really express my sincere gratitude to UN Tourism for, first of all, working on a thematic day for tourism. That's very important. And going a step further and ensuring that the Caribbean was in the room and that we get to express our reality. Because for us, we are beautiful islands, we have beautiful beaches, but it's home to 40 million people. So sustainability is our currency, as someone said to me earlier. Just to frame it a little bit, at least 8 out of the 10 most dependent nations in the entire world is based in the Caribbean. And for some of our destinations, up to 80% of the GDP is tourism-based. So that was a game changer for us. And being on that global stage, as I indicated before, it allowed us to share that reality with the world. And it was surprising to me how many people did not know that reality. It also gave us an opportunity to work on an area in the Caribbean that financing. There's a saying that faith without works is dead. We certainly have the faith in the Caribbean. We're willing to work, we're hardworking people, but the gap is that access to financing, and that's how you get to work. The other aspect for us is to establish a science-based approach to sustainability. We talk about it a lot, and one of the things that came out of COP29 was to establish collaborations. So what we started to do is a sustainability in action series. And what we decided to do is that we do a lot of webinars and we give a lot of information, but we way past awareness in the Caribbean. Our daily life tells us that climate change is real. Every year, 2 months from now, we go into a panic in the Caribbean because it's hurricane season. So what we decided to do with our members, give our members actionable tools. And the latest was a carbon calculator. And this is what we want to do going forward, actionable items.
Very good. Thank you so much for this. And continuing on this action-driven, Virginia, at the WTTC, you've had also quite a bit of contribution as well at the COP29, and also since then you have this. Can you tell us a little bit about the net zero roadmap and some of the other research that you've been conducting?
Of course, Willie, and I think, as you know, we represent the private sector, so we are really looking at what is happening across the whole travel and tourism ecosystem globally. And we knew back in 2021 that we needed to understand what net zero actually meant for a sector. Is this feasible? And if so, where do we need to start? And that's sort of the journey we started back in Glasgow, where we launched the first net zero roadmap that actually supports the Glasgow Declaration and basically provides, again, industries and companies and understanding. What we wanted to do for Baku was update that roadmap, so we launched a second edition with our partners at the Azerbaijan government and Accenture to really understand how has climate action progressed. And the good news is, so we analyzed the top 250 businesses across all industries, and what we know is about 50% or more, 53% of all these businesses now have a climate target. So there's progress. And about double from Glasgow, so from 21 to 44 of these businesses actually are aligned with the Science Based Targets initiative. So we are seeing some progress. Now, the other thing we did as part of the roadmap is really say, how can we start action now, just as Donna said, because that's what's critical. So we provide a decarbonization framework. We say, don't look at 2050 and because it can be quite a daunting task, but where do we start now? Where do we set our targets by 2030? How can we achieve carbon neutrality? Then move into net zero for scopes 1 and 2, and then eventually tackle the supply chain, which is one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, I think we'll hear about the development on scope 3 calculator in a minute, but thanks very much for this, Virginia.
And Glenn, question to you. We've heard about actionable tools, and I think that's very much your remit. You've been aligning the hospitality industry with sustainable practices and mostly standards. So can you elaborate on this year's progress and what's planned for the upcoming years?
Absolutely, yeah. So our organization worked very closely with WTTC and UN Tourism and really focused on building the resources, tools, and the convening power of the hospitality industry globally, focused on, like you say, standards and resources to go with that. And so we're very fortunate to announce at COP29 our partnership with UN Tourism and our framework on measuring universal sustainability criteria for energy, carbon, water, and waste. We have 8.2 million rooms, in essence, in the portfolio of companies as part of the alliance, which then enables us to really have that conversation to say, if we're all agreeing that we're all going to measure it the same way, then we'll actually make an impact. And so right now, we announced that measure, and so now we're building out the tools to support that. So updating our carbon measurement tool to ensure Scope 3 is built in, the LCA is built into it, and basically we're future-proofing the industry and giving those tools necessary to make that happen. And then now we're moving into the social measures and biodiversity measures as well. So it's really important, as again, we want the industry to actually take a leadership approach to showcase how they can do it so that it's realistic coming back to them. But at the same way, it has to be very transparent and verifiable. We want verifiable, real-time data into the system. And ultimately, we're building out a comprehensive data platform. That data platform where the companies will then ingest that data, that then, again, it's apples to apples data. And this will be a first-time kind of game-changing effort that we're really excited about when you have that volume of companies coming together and agreeing that they will ingest that data on a quarterly basis. Right now, a lot of the data comes in and it's like 14 months old, and it's not verifiable. It's good trend analysis data, it's amazing data there, but it's not giving you the data we need for the transparency. So that's what we're in the midst of right now. And the companies are all at the table, and it's quite exciting.
It's super important. That's data I use, even if it's all data for education purposes, because it's great. But of course, we need more than that, as you've just mentioned.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, and we'll probably come back to it through some questions in a little bit. But returning to EU strategies, Misa, can you share at this point the role of governance to not only sustain, but also enhance tourism competitiveness and diplomacy?
Yes, I love to think about governance because nobody ever talks about governance. And let me tell you why I like it so much, because I've done tourism, I think, for 4 years now, maybe 5. And I went in doing data and digitalization, data sharing is our mantra, it's our thing. So I love everything that I've heard so far, and DMOs will be a priority for new strategy. So absolutely agree with everything. But then the more I was doing tourism, the more I realized that we can put a number of tools at the disposal of our stakeholders. We can support business and support destinations. As much as you absolutely can, we can put EU funds, substantial EU funds available. But at the end of the day, what I've noticed that the success stories only happens where there is a clear indication of who does what, within which framework, and with a system of monitoring what happens and why it happened, and that is governance. So what I would like to have a conversation about is also how do we support our stakeholders in improving that aspect, in improving how they make strategic decisions, how they use the tools that we give them to make strategic decisions, how they can become like stronger voices internationally. All that, to me, goes down to understanding who makes the decision, who do I talk to, who do I get around the table, and the European Union, I think, has that leadership role of being able to gather everyone around the table, but who do I call? Who is it that I need to talk to that actually can make these decisions? And I think that is an aspect that we should be working a little bit more on.
Yeah, the decision making.
They like that.
Good pitch.
Thank you.
John, considering the evolving EU policies, what strategies are being implemented within Nestor to ensure regions remain influential in European tourism policy making amidst all these changes?
Well, we're just in the process of developing our tourism advocacy group. So that is bringing together our Committee of the Regions members. So these are regional elected officials who sit at the Committee of the Regions in Brussels. And through that, we're beginning to mobilize and draw together also our MEPs, and we want to basically advocate for, in particular, a dedicated fund for tourism going forward, because we think the picture is rather mixed, that tourism stakeholders have to sort of go across various different programs to find funding. There's Interreg, there's Horizon, there's LIFE, and so on and so forth, that a dedicated fund would actually do justice to the tourism sector, and that's something that we're going to be advocating for. Projects are so important because they ultimately inform policy. So, we ourselves implement projects. We're involved in 3 projects, 2 around data, D3 Hub, the Data-Driven Destinations Hub, and the Deploy Tour projects. We're looking forward to the development of the European Data Competency Centre. So MISA, we're working very closely with you in that regard. So I think that there is a sort of big role to play here. We're delighted, of course, as you mentioned, that there is a commission now for transport and tourism. That's a really, really good move. It's recognition of this huge importance that tourism has, but we want to see that also sort of reflected in funding structures going forward. And I think that's something that an intermediary organisation like ours, Nextdoor, bringing together 50 regions, around about 50 regions, and a number of other universities as well, can usefully undertake to do. So we will continue that process. We're having our second advocacy meeting coming up at the beginning of April, the second plenary of the Committee of the Regions, and we'll be working forward with position papers, responding to hopefully the invitation for the consultation of a new European tourism strategy and contributing to that discussion. So you're going to be hearing a lot more from us.
That's great.
Fantastic.
Great. Funding, financing is critical. I just see that, I just want to remind the audience, we do have Slido, so do bring in your questions using Slido at any times. Virginia, I come back to you. You've just mentioned just a few minutes ago that you have an increasing number of companies following the Science-Based Target Initiative, et cetera, and you at the WTTC track a myriad of KPIs through your research, the social and environmental research. How is that shaping your strategy moving forward, all this data that you're getting in?
Thank you. Yes, and absolutely. I think we have, for many, many years and decades, monitored the economic impact of travel and tourism, but we knew that as this sustainability conversation was evolving, we needed to really get a grip of what our impact on the environment is, and also on the social side. So we developed this model that we're very proud of, that looks at our footprint not just on greenhouse gas emissions, energy, water, a number of resources. And so that allows us to track how the sector is evolving. So as you say, so we know how many emissions we were responsible for in 2023, which is about 6.5%. Obviously, we weren't back in full force at that year, so we expect that to increase. But I think the other thing that this model allows us to do is look at our emissions intensity. So how those emissions are changing per dollar of GDP. So what that data is basically telling us is that there is some progress. The emissions intensity is falling, particularly in the last 5 years, about 10%, which is good, but not good enough. So I think that is the main message. We are seeing some progress, but we know we need to do a lot more. Now, we know where these emissions are coming from as well. About 2/5 of it is from transportation, and that is understandable. We are in the business of moving people from point A to point B. So, but it's all modes of transportation we need to tackle. We do a lot of work on sustainable aviation fuel. I see ICF there at the back, and we're very proud to be partnering with them just to understand what are the challenges around sustainable aviation fuel production. How can we enhance that? How can we make that more accessible and more affordable? Because that's certainly going to be a tipping point for the industry. And then also looking at the more low-hanging fruit, like energy renewables, low carbon sources of electricity, which is basically the next element of our emission footprint.
Yeah. So two-fifth to transportation. That leads me to Donna, because you mentioned your dependency on tourism in the Caribbean. So, knowing those insights, can you discuss what's being implemented to manage that dependency on tourism and the consequence of impacts in sustainability development around transport, but other things as well? So how do you manage this conundrum in a way?
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that question. So there are a number of things that we're doing in the region. And the main thing that comes to mind is that there was a time in the region we spoke a lot about diversification of our economies. And that's a good thing, but what we have come to realize is that we could diversify within tourism. So we have had a significant push being led by the Caribbean Tourism Organization towards ecotourism, community-based tourism. Just yesterday, I learned that Jamaica, for instance, who's part of the CTO, have established a dance hall school in Jamaica. Now, you would know that Jamaica is the home of Bob Marley, the home of dance hall music. So you could literally come to Jamaica and learn some of the very popular Jamaican dance moves. And I could try some of them, but I won't.
I was just about
But on a very serious note, that's a way of diversifying within tourism, and there are other initiatives. Another area is public-private sector partnerships, and working very closely with agencies like WTTC. And within the CTO, we sit at a very unique position where we bring in our member countries, which is 25 Caribbean islands at this time, and we have close to 100 private sector partners and affiliates. And within that space, we have the ability to collaborate with cruise lines, with airlines, and it's very important that government and the private sector work hand in hand, and there are many success stories as it relates to that in the region. The other area is the circular economy and waste management. And just a quick story in terms of nearly every Caribbean island now has placed a ban on single-use plastic. You can't use it in many of our destinations. And some destinations have gone a step further in terms of ensuring that this is managed properly. A quick story is Antigua, where I had the privilege of living. I came in one time at the airport and I was stopped and my bags were examined. And every single plastic that I had brought into the destination, I was asked to remove it, leave it at the airport, and I was almost charged. But it was an opportunity to educate me as to how that could impact the environment. So there are a number of things that we're doing in the region, but most importantly for us is that we've gone past awareness, because we feel it every day, so we now actionable items and looking forward to partnering with several of my colleagues on the stage here. I think that's a quick next step for us.
What would you say to tourists that are here in Europe and are wondering, should I do my trip to the Caribbean, but then it's such a long flight, and they are faced with that decision of to balance, do I do this trip now and I feel bad about it, but then I will have a great time in the Caribbean, or how would you sort of frame this to the individual person making the decision on a trip?
Well, the Caribbean, we call it sustainability, but we have always practiced responsible tourism in the Caribbean. So a visit to the Caribbean would give you an opportunity to put that in action.
Right.
So if a long-haul trip to the region, yes, it has an environmental impact, but you get an opportunity through our tourism programs to be part of our regenerative tourism process.
Okay.
So right now we do things such as I indicated before, community-based tourism, but there's also voluntourism, where you could get to volunteer and be part of the society. And as many people say, to leave it better than you found it. And we have found very significant ways to do that, and at the same time have a wonderful vacation, but at the same time give back and be part of the solutions.
That's great. That's great to hear. I hear we have a lot of questions, so you can show them actually, because we only see one at this point on the screen. Oh, it's only one at a time. We have to take one at a time. I got it, but I want to ask Glenn, and we're going to do this in a minute. I didn't realize that. Thank you so much, the Régie, for telling me. I didn't. My mistake. Glenn, I know that you've just said that you're going to be working on this, on the HCMI and the calculator, and trying to enhance it with the scope 3, and you've mentioned that as well. What about everything that's around other metrics around biodiversity, and when we look at perhaps the social component, what are the plans to implement this within the current existing hospitality standards?
Well, we got the environmental standard figured out in terms of what the industry. Well, last year we worked through the development and is building on what the net zero roadmap, but we have the pathway to what we call net positive hospitality. So this is about positioning the industry as giving back to the destination for which we have the privilege to operate within. And so within that context, yes, the environmental dimension, but it is the social dimension as well. And we know it's kind of the Wild West when it comes to what we measure as progress when it comes to sustainability in the social dimension. And where the conversation right now is really focused around human rights, particularly on modern slavery. We have a significant issue in this industry, quite frankly. And of course, then, as we referenced yesterday, accessibility. There's a real opportunity to showcase how do we progress this conversation in accessibility. So what we want to do is when we looked across these 16 areas of material, we want to be realistic that we're only going to really get agreement globally on about 6 or 7 key measures. Yeah. And of course, there will be a whole bunch of other ones, but they might be more regional discussion. But having a real focus on that. So when it comes to the social dimension, those 2 areas are where we're looking at. And then the biodiversity area, I mean, we're having lots of conversations, even from the banking industry, that are looking at like eDNA as an example, something that's very pragmatic, something that you can measure, have a solid outcome. That may be something where we as an industry can get in there, but obviously we need to have something that's very quantifiable, measurable, and transparent. And that's where we're really focused, and we're certainly looking forward to working with your team on this as well. And I think that's where we're positioning the overall platform. But then underpinning this whole conversation is actually training. I mean, we have a World Academy for Sustainable Hospitality that actually provides training by department across 10 different departments. And within that, it showcases how does that front desk officer, for example, contribute to the measurement and ultimately sustainability of the property they're working in. And so within those contexts, all that alignment is happening from the training side right through. And then finally on biodiversity, we have a formal partnership with WTTC and UN Tourism on nature positivity. And it's a real commitment that industry comes together in a clear way with our partners at COP16s and those things that are on the biodiversity conversation. Because too often we go into those kind of conversations fragmented. In this way, we're coming together with a very clear strategy on what we want to do on the nature positive side, which then will, from the conservation movement in the world, the conservation folks that actually manage COPs of those natures, will take us a lot more seriously. Because we're coming at it not in a fragmented way, but in a very concentrated and clear way on how we can be a contributor to the preservation of the planet and be the guardians of the planet, because we have a vested interest as in the tourism industry that this planet it succeeds.
That's
and
right.
So, and there's not many sectors that can say that, right? And we have that, and we can be seen in a much different light.
Yeah, being steward to the
Way
planet.
to the steward, that's right.
All right, so we have a lot of questions.
Let's take some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how will smaller regions just starting to launch tourism profit from upcoming EU concepts, and how can it enhance European diversity? John, maybe.
Yeah, I'm
for you.
not too sure what they mean by the question, but I mean, I think there's place for everyone, isn't there, in these discussions? So smaller regions are also extremely valid in the views and opinions that they will have, and they should be putting those forward into the discussion. We at Nextdoor have a number of so-called smaller regions from right across Europe, and those regions come at things from a different perspective, and they have equally valid opinions and views as other sort of more traditional sort of, bigger tourism regions. So the response would be, please get involved, potentially consider joining a network like ours, because I think we can help you, and engage with the discussions, because everything is very much on the boil now at European level. It's a great time to sort of engage with the developing new formulation of a strategy at European level. So, there's a new mandate, of course, with the European institutions. So very much it's opportune now to sort of be outward-looking and connect at European level, and don't think you have necessarily all of the answers within your own region or country, because there's good value and merit in interchanging and collaborating with other regions across Europe, because they'll bring different perspectives and different sort of views that you may then want to ultimately import into your own tourism delivery. So it's really important to sort of, as I say, be outward-looking and sort of see beyond put your head above the parapet, really.
But if I may, I think help is available as well. It's our job at European level. It's the job of the Commission to promote exchange of information and making sure that if they're looking for information on how to solve a problem, they have access to someone else who's already dealt with that. So they don't have to reinvent it. And this is a big part of what we do. So making sure that information flows, the best practices are shared.
I'd like to take that next question, and I'm not too sure who to turn to, but perhaps you, Virginia, I'm not too sure. How can we achieve a balance between promoting tourism growth and the need for resource conservation? Arguably, you could say tourism growth direct funds towards tourism resource conservation, but this question asks as well, particularly in overburdened destinations.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot happening on this space, and obviously we've all seen the headlines. There's a lot of concern around this sort of so-called over-tourism or overcrowding, but I think where we approach that is from a destination management perspective, and there's so much happening in that space in terms of dispersion, in terms of new destination, the way we use and embrace technology to address this, but it also all comes down to collaboration and inclusion. It's not just a conversation, it's not something the public sector is going to solve on their own, or even with the private sector. We need the communities at the forefront of the conversation, and we need the local authorities. And we all really need to understand how we benefit from travel and tourism, the impact that has to the quality of life of the citizens, and also how we protect and become guardians of nature, as Glenn was saying.
Very good. Donna, let's discuss this next one, perhaps. There's a statement that says, work done in international dialogue for climate action in tourism comes from the global north. Are there efforts to include experiences from the global south? Do you want to pick up that one?
Yes, I do, but I wanted to just add something really quickly to what Virginia said. There are studies that indicate that people are willing to pay up to 10% more for a sustainable experience, and I think that's an opportunity right there. In terms of this specific question, I don't quite follow what is being asked of specifically there, so if you could help me break it down a little bit, that will help.
I'm just wondering whether in the discussion, if the international dialogue that's having in the global north, how much of is it influenced by the global south, these discussions happening in the global north, I'm assuming. I mean, you were at COP29, so obviously,
yes.
Obviously you were there, and you are very much influencing or discussing with everyone. So there is a connection.
There is a connection in tourism for sure, and one of the realities of the Caribbean is because of how small we are, our footprint is very limited. Our footprint is we don't have that much of an impact as it relates to the negative impact of climate change, yet we suffer the most.
Yeah.
So because of that unique position that we're in, I think it gives us a voice as it relates to what are some of the actionable items, and it also opens a door for us to educate not only our population, but also educate our visitors.
Very good, thank you so much. Listen, we're coming to an end, and I know I've asked you to prepare a little something about what are the 3 words that should define tourism this coming year, but we're going to reduce this to 1 word because we don't have much time. So I hope you're ready for this. 1 word that for you defines tourism industry for this upcoming year. Donna, do you want to give us that word?
My word would be reimagine.
Reimagine.
Yes.
Thanks so much. Virginia?
My word will be together.
Together. Glenn?
Innovation.
Innovation. Misa?
Smart.
Smart. John?
I'd say opportunity.
Opportunity. Hilary? I'm just kidding.
Let's reimagine together an innovative and smart opportunity.
Boom.
Wow.
Well, thank you everyone for those powerful closing thoughts and a very great discussion. A big thank you to our panelists, to you, Willie. And with that, I'm going to give it back over to Katie to tell us what's coming up next. Thank you, everyone.